Well, hello everyone. Glad to be back. I've been away for a few weeks. Been a busy time, uh, getting gardening ready and all the spring chores and everything. Mother's Day and birthdays and everything else. It's just been a little bit of a busy time. So I've had one of my pet peeves about things has been on my mind. So that's what this video is going to be about. And so before we get started, as I always tell you to, if you follow me on YouTube or if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, click the bell so you get the notifications. If you follow me on Rumble, do the same thing. Subscribe to the channel. And if you watch me on Facebook, you can follow me on Midnight Rider page on Facebook. So anyway, and like and share it on there as well. Do all three and help me get the message out, that the message of liberty. That's what my goal is here in Tennessee. So what I want to talk about today is, and what I'm going to title this video is, should the government? And that's a big question when it comes to things is, should the government get involved in things? And should the government do this or should the government do that? I think the government should do this. The answer to the question pretty much is 98% of the time is no, the government shouldn't. And they shouldn't do a lot of things. And a lot of times we have to do things on the state level because of what the federal government does. And so if we could just get government to get out of our lives and leave us alone, we'd be a lot better off. And we can make our own decisions. And I believe it was Thomas Jefferson that quote that said, with liberty comes responsibility. That's why most men dread it. They don't want to take they want their liberty, but they don't want to take responsibility for their actions. So what I want to do is share a couple ideas with you on and examples of what government does and how we may agree with it here, but we disagree with it here when it's basically still the same actions, but simply because we agreed with it that time, it comes back and bites us the next time. So my first example is in 2007, June of 2007, the Tennessee legislature passed a Smoke-Free Tennessee Act, and it was signed into law by Phil Bredesen. And basically, it stopped smoking inside facilities, restaurants, businesses, whatever, manufacturing. So, a lot of places agreed with that. They were like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm glad the government finally done that instead of me having to do it as a business owner or as a employer saying, well, we want our facility to be smoke free. We're just going to enact that and take the risk of doing that, with employees leaving or whatever. So they were glad that the government come by and done it for them so they could hide behind that. But where they really got upset was the same action was in 2013 when the state of Tennessee legislature come back and passed the guns and trunks law. So if you had a firearm that you kept in your vehicle, even though the facility or business may have been anti-gun or didn't want people having guns on their property, the state passed legislation that said in the state of Tennessee, you could have a firearm in your car, your truck or whatever, your vehicle, as long as it was locked up in there, there was fine. There was nothing that they could do. And, businesses, employers and everybody got all upset. And I had a HR guy tell me, he was all upset about that. What about property rights? What about our property rights as a business? We shouldn't have to, do this because we have property rights. And I looked at him, I said, did you feel the same way when Tennessee passed the smoke-free Tennessee, the smoking ban? Well, no, we agreed with that. And I said, Okay, so you didn't care about your property rights when the state passed that bill because you agreed with it. You benefited from it. But now the state comes back and says, okay, you have to do this on your property. You disagree with this bill, and now you want to talk about property rights. What you should have said back in 2007 was you disagreed with the property right issue then. You might have agreed with the ban on the smoking, but you didn't holler about your property rights. You should have said that should be left up to the employer or businesses or whoever. We don't need the government to do that. But they agreed with that one. So, that's what I'm saying. When you do these things, it's going to come back and bite you. And I got other examples. Um, I heard last weekend, I saw a preacher on Facebook. They were protesting at a uh, like a whiskey or liquor uh, festival or something where they were serving alcohol or something, and they were doing some street preaching and stuff. And that's all well and good. That's fine. But I heard him say, um, you know, the liquor makers need to be held responsible for those people who drink liquor or drink alcohol and then go out and cause a wreck and people get hurt or get killed. Well, that sounds all well and good until you get to thinking about, well, that's the same thing the left and the anti-gun crowd have been saying about gun manufacturers is they want gun manufacturers to be held accountable for somebody taking a gun and killing someone or doing a mass shooting or whatever. It's the same thing. If you're wanting to hold liquor makers or alcohol makers responsible, then gun makers are going to be the same way. Even the state healthcare agencies have even tried to go after sugary drinks and stuff like that. It's a personal responsibility. It's if somebody goes and buys alcohol and they get behind the wheel of the car, it's not the alcohol maker's fault that they did that. If somebody goes home and drinks alcohol in their home and does nothing wrong, you may look at that as being a sin, and but they're not harming no one. Same way with a gun. If they hunt and do whatever and target shoot and no one ever gets harmed, they're fine. But it's when they go out and do something else with it that causes harm. That's a personal responsibility issue, and that's what the court systems are for. And so when you start arguing that for alcohol makers to be sued and held accountable for drunk drivers and stuff, then you're putting gun makers and everybody else at risk. That's how it goes around and comes back and bites us. And we don't realize that. We think it's all good, but the other people are sitting over here saying, yeah, if they pass that, well, that's going to be good because we're going after them over here. It's like, no, we don't want the government involved in this. Is a personal responsibility to do. If somebody gets out drinking and driving and they hurt someone or kill someone, they should be held accountable in the court systems. Now, whether that's happening or not, that's a different story, and that's something that needs to be fixed. But you don't do that by passing legislation to sue these people. Let's look at it. Another situation, government in marriage. How did we get government involved in marriage? We look at marriage license and, how did that come about? Most people don't realize marriage license didn't always exist. It started, late 1800s, early 1900s in a lot of states because a lot of people, including Christians, didn't like interracial marriages. So what did they do to try to stop it? They went out, got the state legislatures to pass marriage license laws where the state could turn you down on whether you got married or not. If a man white man and a Chinese woman, or a Chinese man and a white woman, or black man and a white woman, a white man and black woman, or whatever goes into to get a marriage license, the state could have looked at you and said, nah, we're not going to give you that license. You're an interracial couple and that's against the law. That's why you need a marriage license. They could do that. But then the restrictions dropped, and things come about, and they started issuing a marriage license to interracial couples. Bottom line, government should have never been involved in it in the first place. We say that marriage is a institution ordained by God. The government should not ever be involved in it. But look where we are today. Is a lot of Christians who beg for the marriage license for the interracial marriage deal. Now it's coming back and biting them in the tail because they disagree with gay marriage. And the government says, okay, well, we say it's legal. You have to issue the license for it. It should never be a license for marriage. If that's a institution ordained by God, that is something, a religious ceremony, then that's what it should be controlled by. You should never have the government involved in that. But you see where it's come to now. It's the government's involved in all of it, and they use it for tax purposes and everything else. Back before all this happened with marriage license, most people had a family Bible, and a lot of those marriage records were held in there. And that's all knew about who married who and stuff. That was the records. But now we see how government does that. So that's my little spill on this. And these people begging for government to do this and do that, I disagree with it. Now, just like here in Tennessee, we had an example of what I started out the video by saying is you had the Biden mandate trying to mandate these employers of doing these vaccines and stuff, and where the employees would have to get their vaccine or get tested twice weekly or whatever and everything. But then, because of how government got involved in that, the federal government, the state government had to turn around and get involved in it as well. And the best thing we do is just get government out of it, get them out of our lives. They don't need to be, part of it. We're such a nanny state that we can't do nothing without having permission for this or asking for permission for that. It's just nuts. We would be better off if we just pushed the government back and said, leave us alone. If we need you, we'll call you. We don't need you. We'll rely on each other. We'll rely on ourselves as well. We'll work things out for ourselves. And guess what? The government will pretty much go out of business and get back to the intended role of government. And you can find that in the Declaration of Independence, which is on the screen behind me. If you read down to where it says we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted. Governments are instituted to secure your rights. Anything beyond that becomes tyranny. And it didn't say the federal government, it said government. So the federal government, the state government, your city government, your county government, they were all instituted with the purpose of securing your rights, not taxing us to death and having to get permission for everything. So anyway, that's my talk for today, and I appreciate you joining me and share the video. And I enjoy doing these things and sharing my thoughts and stuff. And hopefully I'll have an interview for you coming up here pretty soon. I want to focus on some other things as well, but I wanted to share these thoughts with you and hope it makes sense to you and get you in the mindset to help you think, well, do I really want the government to do that, or can we just do it on our own and let it go at that? So with that, I say, have a blessed day. God bless you, and we'll catch you again soon. Bye-bye.